years for developmentally delayed 3 to 5-year-olds. I taught first grade for 11 years, or maybe it was 12. I don't know. And now I'm in my second year of kindergarten. I graduated from here twice. I got my undergrad here in 2003 and my master's in 2007. And I work at a school that has a lot of kiddos who have a lot of really sad home lives, and we're pretty economically disadvantaged. I think our percentage of kiddos who have free and reduced lunch is in the 80s, somewhere around that. So we certainly don't have cream of the crop kids, and we don't have all kiddos who struggle. It's a mix, but it's more those who struggle than don't. So Melissa wanted me to talk to you about how I run centers in my classroom and give you a tour, which is why I was panicking because my video was playing sideways. So I found that the key to success in my room is to be organized, to have a place for everything, and make sure so that the kids know where everything goes every day, because then it makes your job a lot easier. And what works for me probably won't work for you, and what works for you probably won't work for me. You just have to kind of find what works for you. So this, you're actually going to get in the handout, but that top picture of drawers, that's where I store all my center stuff. You'll see that in the video. And then that chart is how my kiddos rotate through centers every day. You'll get a picture of that too so you can see that. So they do 2 centers a day for about 30 minutes apiece, 25 minutes apiece. And so all I do is move their pictures every day. The rest of the signs stay the same. And then that in bin up there, that's where they put all their work. And I will go at it during snack and give it back to them just so their parents know I saw it. But all of my centers are hands-on and very engaging, so organization is important, because otherwise you're going to have stuff everywhere. And I don't like stuff everywhere. And we review expectations every day, and then when you review expectations every day, your room will look like that picture in the bottom, and that was the first day of kindergarten. And it was because I talked to them for 20 minutes about this is what we do at centers, and this is how we behave at centers, and this is what we don't do at centers. And no joke, that was the first day of kindergarten, and they were all at their place, and they were all doing their job. So the next slide, I hope it works this time. See, it's still sideways. Why is it like that?
I don't know.
It's all right.
There we go.
Oh.
There it goes. Hold on, we'll start it over. Room, and since I can't bring you to my room, I thought Hi everybody, Melissa thought it would be helpful if you could see my room, and since I can't bring you to my room, I thought I would bring my room to you. So this is the view from my doorway. And when you walk into my room right to the right, the kiddos come in and they know that their lunch boxes go right there. And then that is our birthday board, that rather than have names and numbers, when they don't know names, I do faces. And then I always have our daily schedule posted. And I've gotten in the habit of changing that every night when I leave so that the next morning it's ready to go in case I would be sick. We have iPads in here, and there's their headphones and hand sanitizer. There's my computer area, and then just walking along. Here's my guided reading area. This is where I meet with my small groups. And that jumbled mess in the corner, that's indoor recess. But this is my favorite part of my room. It's my center chart. And the kiddos know how to read that. They find their face, they find their center. And then what's great about it is they can then get out their own materials, because this cart has corresponding pictures. So they know that if they are at the math center, they open the math drawer and everything that they need is in there, and then it makes for easy cleanup. And then I have my holiday book nook. And then this is all of my guided reading groups. I have a bin for each group. I have the books picked out at least 3 to 4 days ahead of time. I have a warm-up that's differentiated, like this group really needs to work on sight words, so they each have a ring in here of their sight words. This group also needs to work on segmenting CBC sounds, CBC words, so their warm-up for that is in there too. And then that's how that goes. This group warms up by reading sentences. And then there's just some more leveled books there. I have a shelf for all of my math manipulatives. There's my in-bin where kids put their work when they finish it at center time. And then over here is kind of my area. I always copy a week ahead and plan a week ahead. So all of my copies for next week are in those drawers, Monday through Friday. All of my math games, our math series has a ton of games, so over the summer I copied them. I made them, I organized them, I put them in folders. And then all of my binders that I access every day. I have my teacher's corner. That's all my stuff. And then my desk, every night before I leave a sub tub on my desk because emergencies happen. And I don't like my teammates to have to scramble, so I never leave without a sub tub on my desk ready to go. And then coming out around, there's my computer area. There's my check-in attendance. Kids come in the morning and they move their name into a 10 frame. That's how we practice counting by team numbers. And they have ownership, and it's their first job that they learn. There's our calendar, and then our Promethean board, our writing center. And then over here, it's a really small classroom library because it's kindergarten and I don't like it to be overwhelming. But I have my leveled readers, and then their table caddies, because over here you see their tables. And their tables have corresponding numbers, table 1, table 2, table 3, and then the blue table down there is table 4. And the numbers have a color, and that matches their caddy. And then each child has a seat sack, because we don't have desks in kindergarten. And in their seat sack, they each have their own bag of level books. These are all my books that I bought, so they don't ever leave the classroom. They have different books that they take home, but these are books that they can read if they need to have something to do. I have my dismissal procedures hanging on there, and then I have lockers with word helpers, and they keep their stuff in there. We just started word families. We just finished short A, so those are all started. My word wall with color posters, writing center, number posters. I will say that everything hanging in my room I've made myself, with the exception of that calendar that says February right there. And I didn't make that alphabet above the windows, but my center expectations are posted there. I made those. The alphabet I didn't make, but everything else I've made. Those are our behavior expectations that the whole school has. So we go over those every day. We have a daily pledge that we say. And that's about it. The only other thing I wanted to point out is I mentioned about my sub plans that I keep on my desk. I have name tags hanging because in kindergarten sometimes they don't always know their names. So I tell my sub in my sub plans to grab the name tags that are hanging by the light. Okay, so that's my room. If you ever want to come visit, come on down. And the only reason I said about making my stuff is because I know when I was student teaching, people were trying to pawn stuff off on me. I was like, I don't want that. I keep that. Because I only pointed that out because I truly had an alphabet, and that was it. Like, there wasn't anything else in there. So if people want to give you stuff, take it and hoard it and use it. And it might be old and beaten up and battered. Like, I didn't do that all overnight. That was a gradual process. But that's the only reason I pointed that out, because nobody tells you that. They give you an alphabet and say, have at it. So then Melissa also wanted me to show you centers and what they look like. So I have 2 videos. They're not long. They're like 2 minutes. Just so you can see my room. So while my group is at a guided reading people, they have lots of centers going on in the room. This center is our library center where children have to look through and find words that they can read and write, and they write them on a recording sheet. And then we can over here. There are some kiddos working on a number puzzle, and they have to put all of the numbers together, 1 to 60. They have a guide to look at if they need it. Some of them don't need it, so then they don't use it. We have a writing center, and in our writing center, kiddos are writing about things they can wear in the winter and what they like to do in the winter, and I have examples posted for them to look at and see. These friends over here are doing independent reading and building some CVC words. And our friends over here are working together to build some sight words. We also have a computer center where they're practicing some skills that they need. We have a big book center where they're looking for words that they can read. These boys had to count some animals, and they did job number 1, which was to count the animals and circle the numbers. And now they're working on their geo boards. And this friend over here, she did her Write the Room. And around the room we have cards. There's an example of one there, there were two, that they have to find. And that all happens then when my friends are at my table, and they stay at each center for about 25 minutes. They do 2 centers a day. So there's just one more to show you the next round. Once they move. I don't know how to make play. Oh no. I'm a math person. So now we've switched to center number 2. And the kiddos just moved right along. He knew to go to Big Books. This friend over here has a seasonal book and he's writing down words that he can read. Okay, and then we have our new friend who's building his numbers. We have a new group of writers. And then these friends over here are going to work together to try and build some CVC words with beginning, middle, and ending sounds. They're just getting it set up. My friend over here is going to be building some words. You got to put the words in the pocket chart, buddy. And then we have our iPad friends. Our iPad station is really cool. The students have a QR code that they scan, and then it takes them right to the story that a teacher is reading to them. It's through an app that we use for that. And then here are my counters. See, they're counting the animal, and then they find it and record it. We have a math center in our ELA block just to practice and reinforce our math skills. Often I have 2 math centers like I do this one. Okay? That's it. That's all you have. So do you have any questions? Anything you want to ask? All right. Just step it up.
She usually speaks for like 2 minutes. No, I'm just kidding. Hi everyone, my name's John. I'll be talking to you now.
I'm just gonna sit here. I don't like to stand up.
That's fine. Do it.
All right, my name's Jill Isaacson, and I also teach 5th grade. I don't know how Maureen does it with little kids because that would totally put me over the edge. They're like way too little. So I like 5th grade and up for sure. I've taught 5th grade for 17 years now. This year I am teaching science and social studies and writing, and it's basically writing across the curriculum on my end of it. I do teach at a school that has mid 90% poverty as well. So I know my entire homeroom is free and reduced lunch as far as that goes. So we have lots of behavior issues, lots of issues outside of school. So school's their safe zone as far as that goes. So Melissa asked me to talk about how to survive your first year of teaching. And I think it's a big thing for you. You always want to think, what can I do this year to make it easier on myself? So I think the biggest thing, and Maureen stressed that from the beginning, was you need to be organized and be prepared as far as that goes. You do spend your summers working on things that you wouldn't normally think of. And like she said, anyone that's going to give you anything, take it. You can always pass it off later, you can get rid of it later, but in the meantime, take what someone's going to give you. My room's the same as yours though. Everything I have in there right now, other than the alphabet, is something that I've made myself. And again, that's what you've gone through over the years. You just start to accumulate different things. And this year, teaching different subject than I taught last year, which I taught at ELA last year, I have a whole different realm of things. But again, stuff I've learned over the years. So something that is really big in my classroom is the fact that I don't call my students friends. By 5th grade, they're not my friends. And that's one of the first things I actually say to them at the beginning of the school year. I'm like, I'm the teacher, you're my student, you're not my friend, and I'm not going to call you my friend, because in our building up until 4th grade, they're still referred to as friends. So that's my big thing right off the bat. I am a stickler for rules, and I am a stickler for, if this is going to happen to you, it's going to happen to the next person next to you and the next person next to you. And of course, you always have the kids that do have the IEPs, and they have different rules and things that you need to follow, and you need to follow those. However, I think once you get accustomed to those kids in your room, then they have a different rapport rapport with you sometimes than they do outside that classroom. So one thing that I found that is helpful is to enforce those rules from the day one. Don't give in. Like, if this is how it is, stick with that. And they will eventually, I know at this point in the school year for me, at this point in the year, they know what the rules are. If they don't do their homework, X, Y, and Z happens. If they don't do this, X, Y, and Z happens. And I know one thing that we think about with our kids is the fact that I want them to show ownership of something that they may do wrong or something they may do right. So I make them call their parent. I don't call their parent. They actually call their parent. I tell them if it was something that they did wrong or something they did right. Now, you do come across those times where they refuse to speak to their parent on the phone. So then I start the conversation, and the parent typically will say, put them on the phone. So then the parent speaks from there. Usually you can hear what they say. Works well, at least at the upper end.
I've done it in first grade. I've never done it in kindergarten, but I've had them call him in first grade. Some help for me.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it does. It makes a huge difference. But I try not to make it always a negative end of it. I try to make it a positive too, where, hey, I'm choosing this person today, and we're going to call home, and you're going to tell your mom and dad this is what took place. Now, one other big thing when you do call home, you want to think about who are you calling and what their names are. I know a lot of my kids don't have the same last names as their brothers and sisters, same last name as their parents. Some of them live with their grandparents, some of them live with a guardian. You really need to be organized as far as that goes. So I included a couple communication logs that I use in here, behavior logs that I use in here, where I always list all that information. I know our phone numbers are always rotating as well. I know that it happens. So another thing you want to use when you're thinking about things is you need to make sure that the student never goes home thinking they're in trouble. I always make sure that if we had a rough day, that we have a little talk before they go home, and we explain, hey, this is what took place, this is what the problem was, and we discuss how we can fix it together. And then before I turn them loose, it's, hey, tomorrow's another day, you can figure it out, fresh slate, you come in, we're good to go. You want to make sure that the routines stay in place. I know some of those kids, they need that routine every day. So you come in, you unpack, you pick your lunch, you pick up your morning work, and you get started. So you need to keep those routines for those kids. I know some of my kids actually have the routine written on their folder that they carry around with them. Before we did the departmentalization, I actually had it posted on some of their desks where it would rotate daily depending on what day of the week it was. Never keep a kid after school either, unless you talk to their parent about something. That parent's expecting that kid to come home. Also, monitoring the learners. I know sometimes in the upper grades, teachers think, oh, not a big deal. They know how to use the computer. They know how to do that. That is one of the biggest mistakes you can make. Always monitor your kids with their work, whether it's written work, whether it's technology. Someone's going to figure out some way to buck the system, and they will do it. Check those histories of your computers. If you're not walking around with everyone and you have a small group with you always need to do that. Consider your position to the students as well. I don't typically stand up at the front of the classroom. I rotate around to the different centers that we have as well. I try to get as close as I can to the kids. I'm not big on like kindergarten where we hug and touch, and that doesn't happen here. Like, we don't hug in fifth grade. We don't hug in fifth grade. So I walk around, and my proximity is to be close to them. I'm down on the floor with them. Anywhere that I'm similar to them seems to work better as well. I know that if there are ever any issues in the classroom, I get down at their level. We don't talk about exactly what took place at that time. We talk about other things until they're comfortable, they're calmed down, and then we continue to talk from there then. It could be 5 minutes, it could be 30 minutes, depending. So you need to make that decision of, are your students staying in the classroom, are they leaving the classroom at that time to go to another teacher so that you can handle the situation? Is there another adult coming in to take care of the situation? Big idea, big thinking on who and how am I going to take care of the situation at hand. I often pick kids to do jobs, just as Maureen said, people to pass out papers, people to people lining kids up, my lunch count kids, make them accountable for everything that they do instead of you. It takes a lot of weight off of you if you give them those jobs and you explain those jobs and you watch them do the jobs so that they can function to then teach the next student that's taking that job the following. I do months the following month as far as that goes. I also, like Maureen, make sure my room is ready to go the next day before I leave. I don't have a sub tub, but I do have my papers
Awesome.
ready, and I have everything I need.
September, I was pregnant with my second child, and I was prepping for my maternity leave sub, so I had everything home. I had my manuals home, I had my binders home, I had my emergency cards home because I was making a whole big binder for my maternity leave sub, and I ended up in the hospital with a stomach bug for like 2 days, and there was nothing there for my sub. No, my team was awesome, and they scrambled and they pulled stuff together, but I felt horrible, and so from that day on, and my son's 5 now, I don't leave without something there for 1 day. Like, I was out multiple days, so my team had to scramble for multiple days. At least this time, day 1 would be covered, and they would only have to scramble for day number 2. But it happens.
It does.
It happens.
And I do set everything out on my table for myself the morning of, like my lunch count paper, my attendance, and I have all my passwords on my table for everything that they can use. But I make sure my room's completely picked up, my desk is cleared off, everything's put away that I need put away, just in case. You never know, heaven forbid. You know, you get crazy sick or it's snow day tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, but I have, what I have for you then in my packet are websites that you can use. I have different communication logs, behavior logs. But my biggest piece of advice is make friends with the janitors, the secretaries, all the people that can help you out. Yeah, and stay out of the faculty room and document everything. Document every phone call, document who you talked to, how long you talked to, and what you said. I know that these days now words get misconstrued, and we have a lot of teachers that now we stand in each other's room while we call parents so that there's another person present to hear what the conversation was as far as our school goes. But yeah, so. And like Maureen, I went to Penn State my first 4 years though. Right, Jonathan, Penn State's the way to go. Mm-hmm. And then I did do my master's at St. Francis in curriculum instruction a long time ago. So, that's all I have.
Anybody have
Any
questions for Jill or Maureen right now? They can think of. Crickets.
Unless you guys were chatting.
Yeah.
Like, in a good way. Not in a bad way, that like there would be.
That's
what she-
we're sitting in close proximity over here. I'm just
Four
kidding.
cameras.
No, she meant it in a good way. She said that they would be a very talkative group. They asked us questions.
That close proximity, see, it works.
Yeah.
Question management.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's-
So I know you guys prepared some questions. What kind of questions did you have?
What do you guys make all of your stuff on? Like when I want to make something, it's so frustrating because I don't know if I should just do it from scratch, like on Word, or if I should try to find some websites.
I'm a huge PowerPoint fan for making stuff. I feel like it's easier to manipulate, and there's lots of free clip art and fonts out there
I agree.
in the world. Teachers Pay Teachers has a ton of fonts and clip art. MyCuteGraphics.com is all free graphics that you can like right click and save and then insert into anything that you need. I think PowerPoint, now if I'm like just typing a paper, I'm gonna use Word, but if I'm making something that, like all my centers, I make them all myself, and I use PowerPoint.
Your stuff's so cute. What is it called again? The what? Where do you find your?
Most of my clip art I've purchased from Teachers Pay Teachers, but they do have free clip art
stuff.
from mycutegraphics.com. And even if you go to Teachers Pay Teachers and just type in free clip art, there are people who are very generous with what they create as far as clip art goes. I have so many fonts and so much clip art, I had to buy an external hard drive for my Mac. I'm not gonna lie. So, because I mean, if I'm doing something snowman-y, I want a snowman font. Just,
She can tell she teaches little kids.
I think I would do that if I taught big kids too.
Yeah.
I don't do it quite as
I do.
extensively as you. And I think once you get comfortable with what you're doing, like she's so good at that stuff that like in seconds she could have something to me if I needed it. Where me, I'd be like, all right, no wait, where do I start here? What do I do? So.
Good question, Tori.
my question. What's like the hardest thing, what's the worst thing to prepare yourself for in your first year of teaching?
Well,
Because I feel like I've heard a lot of things, but like they're just.
I think-
Time management, like make time for you. It's really overwhelming and there's a lot to do, but don't work 24 hours a day. Like, let yourself have a good time sometimes.
Okay.
We all do. I can
You
say
didn't tell me that.
If you're not drowning in your first 3 years of teaching,
Right.
you're
It's-
doing something wrong.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, I was drowning, but I still took some time
I mean, like,
to go out for
I was
dinner.
at school hours early, I stayed at school hours late. I mean, you have to put the time in.
And the parents. I think
And
I
it makes
wasn't
it so
prepared for
much
parents.
easier, I think, if you do put that time in.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like reactions to what students do and what they say, they really look for that. So you need to really be able to think on your toes.
You girls said parenting, that's such a huge
The
piece.
parents,
Open
it's
communication,
hard, yeah.
communicate with parents. I've dealt with so many teachers that like don't want to talk to parents, and
I
then you
say-
wait until then the kid goes home and
Yeah.
is telling their side of the story before, and then they believe the kid over the
That
trained
happens,
adult.
and I kind of stay ahead of it too. I send my parents an email every Sunday night of like, this is what's happening in our room this week, these are the special days, this is what we're learning about math, this is what we're learning about reading. And then that kind of alleviates the phone calls in the morning of, hey, does my kid have gym today? Because they know that they're gonna get that from me, and it's just, it's a nice way then to communicate with them.
I also do the same thing, and then nightly, we all sit down as our teammates, and typically it's me. I email the parents what the homework was that night as well, so that the kids can't go home and say there was no homework tonight, if there is anything. Or again,
Text
like special
parents.
days, yeah.
Text
we all
reminders.
do that.
And what I meant by drowning, that's like a good thing. Like don't,
Right.
like it's, you'll get there. You'll get there.
But still have fun.
Yeah, that's really important. The fun.
We're really good at it.
We're really good.
Yeah.
So I'm middle school. So what is like your policy and like your like level of like I guess punishments for like not like doing their homework and stuff like that?
My policy on the homework end of it is not very strict due to the fact that my kids are going home and there's no one there to help them with it. So I can't complain, you're right, they don't have pencils, they don't have paper, they don't take it home with them. So on our end of it, typically what we do is we pull them aside for 10 minutes after lunch whenever they have their extra recess time. And I'll sit with them and I'll actually do their homework with them. So it's not as much of a punishment as it is typically at other schools where there's more parental support and more chances that the kids are going to be able to do something on their own because my kids can't. They don't have the opportunity, so.
I learned quickly that if I assigned homework as an English teacher, it would just kill their grades, and it wasn't a true reflection of what they were able to show me. So I maybe gave homework once a week and gave them the opportunity. And I taught like middle school, so it was much more successful.
I only give homework when I really need to give homework.
I think the jury's still out on whether or not
Right.
the true benefits of homework. There's a lot of
Right.
research that needs to come home about that. Because I think what Jill's saying is, if you're working in a school that homework is, I mean, even whether you're middle school or high school, half the kids in middle school, high school go out and they're working for their families. Homework is the least of their worries. So thinking about the most important part of that instructional day should be your focus.
I typically the homework typically ends up being something they haven't finished in class, so the kids know if they finished it and they have this amount of time to get it done, typically they'll put forth their effort working in school versus just kind of nosing through the day and then they have it for homework, so. And I've made that very clear at the beginning of the school year too, that typically your homework's going to be an extension of what you haven't finished in class, so.
If we're not supposed to spend a whole lot of time in the teacher lounge with hanging out and whatever, how are we supposed to like build a camaraderie with other teachers?
I'm really close with my team.
So what if you're at a school that doesn't have a team?
I mean, we're not saying don't go in, but don't get caught up in the drama that
Like
can
lunch
happen
is the
in
big
there.
issue. Lunchtime in the factory lounge is worse than any other time of the day.
I eat in my room every day with my
Also.
work list.
And I do eat, we eat with my team.
I do, I eat with the team,
Right.
but like our course list.
I never let my student teachers eat the faculty lunch. I didn't want them to see it or get pulled into it, and we were all different schools, and it's the same
It can be a very negative place. Like, it's just real easy to get caught up in the,
drama.
oh, these kids are ridiculous. Oh, these parents are so mean. Oh, our principal's awful. And then you start to feel really negative. Like, I worked on a team that was really negative, and I was ready. Like, I was done. I was,
Sure.
I was gonna walk away. And then Jonathan and my principal at the time helped me, and I'm now with a new team, and it was like a whole breath of fresh air because I realized like I wasn't feeling that way. It was just I was surrounded by so much negativity that it was exhausting. So like, sure, say hello, get your cup of coffee, make your copies, but don't just try really hard not to get sucked up because you just get really down on yourself and down on your situation when it's really not that bad.
So
I know
if
for
it-
myself, I've had the same teammate for 15 years, and then it was always just the two of us. And then we had, once they closed schools, we ended up with another teammate, and we've had her ever since. And my team works really well together, and we know where to pick up where the other person is maybe not as strong as far as that goes also. So having lunch just with our team, so much work gets done versus, and we don't even realize you're actually doing the work at that point. But just staying away from, like she said, the negativity end of it really helps.
And find ways to communicate with whether it's people even just around your room and your building, standing out in the hallway, not only talking to kids, but there are ways to do it. But you'll quickly be able to tell who you should associate with and who you should stay away from. There was another.
Yeah, I was just kind of along the same lines with that. Like, I've noticed that we don't really have a team. I'm secondary, so we don't see that. I don't know if that would be the difference, that we don't see that whole team atmosphere. I'm not really sure. Is that like a thing that we wouldn't see?
I would say, I mean, you're talking about two different things too. I mean, you may not have a specific grade level team, but
Okay.
you may have a department, and your
Right.
department may meet ever so often. A lot of middle schools are also moved to that teaming option where they are, at least sometimes in like 6, 7, 8, where there is a content area specialist.
Okay.
Together, again, depending on sizes of schools and your resources, everything's gonna be a little different. So think about how you can build your own team and what you can do once you actually get in there. And being able to reach out and ask questions is huge. No one is going to, if anyone, let me take it this way, if anyone is jumping on you for asking questions in your first year, those are the types of people you really wanna stay away from. Because they're the ones that are probably gonna pull you down. And it's
Honestly,
very easy to get pulled down and sucked
is.
in very quickly. You won't even realize it.
I
You won't
didn't
even
realize it until I got out, and
Yeah.
it was really bad.
It was, you were ready to leave the
I was ready.
profession.
I was done.
I was ready to
Not
leave
because of the
profession.
kids,
Yeah.
just because I was with a whole lot of negative people, and it was exhausting. And I felt like I was a one-man team doing work for everybody else, and